Library Open Genealogy Lab is proud to present Lori Bessler. Lori Bessler has worked at the Wisconsin Historical Society Library Archive since 1988. She is a reference librarian and outreach coordinator. Lori has lectured throughout Wisconsin and the Midwest on genealogical topics for over 30 years and has been researching family history for over 40 years. She specializes in breaking down brick walls and finding hard-to-find resources. The Wisconsin Historical Society collects materials on local and family history from across the United States and Canada. This scope has been the focus since the 1850s, so the collection is rich and goes very deep. In today's presentation, Lori Bessler will present information on what can be found in the collections, how to use online catalogs, and the materials available in the WHS website for local and family historians. So let's please put our hands together and welcome Lori, shall we? Okay, Lori, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. It's nice to actually see you guys. I can see you all right there. So, yes, I am a reference librarian at the Wisconsin Historical Society, and we have a lot of materials that can help people from across the country, so it's not just Wisconsin connections. So if you look at your handout, which I believe Suzanne gave you, it has a little, I kind of follow along with that, and then I show you how to use our website and how to use our online catalog. So again, the information on Wisconsin Historical Society library collections, it's also in archives. So we have published materials from across the United States and Canada. Our collection of family and local histories started in the 1850s. So around the time, if you think about when Newberry Library started or when the New England Historical Societies had started, New England Historic Genealogical Society had started, we all kind of started around the same time. Maybe Newberry started a little bit later. So we're located on the UW-Madison campus. And we have access to a variety of online materials because we're on this campus. The UW pays for it and we get access. It's a great little situation we have. So our holdings are actually found in one online catalog that is actually maintained by the UW-Madison libraries. So the way you find that catalog is if you look at the screen, you can find it by going into Research Your Family History or Explore Our Collections. So I'm going to choose Research Your Family History. And you can see on the right side it says Search Our Catalogs, and it says Library Catalog, and a little blue Go. I'm always working with our IT people trying to get them to make that a bigger button. So you can click Go. And that'll take you to the online catalog for the libraries here on the UW campus and all the rest of the UW campuses across our state. Now, there are two parts of our collection. One is archives and one is library. So when you look at archives materials, you're mostly looking at unpublished materials, which would include manuscripts, public records, maybe things that the county courthouse have forwarded to us, photographs, maps, things like that. When you're looking for archival materials in this catalog, you're going to start your searching by using 3 different ways to search this. So if I'm looking at, let's see, Watertown, Wisconsin. Remember, this catalog reflects more than just Wisconsin. So if you put Watertown by itself without putting Wisconsin, you're going to get Watertown, Massachusetts, or California, or something in between. So Watertown, Wisconsin. And then what you could do is type in some type of record like a court record. And then you can find different materials that we do have on this. If you look at this one, dockets, 1853 to 1856. Or justice dockets around that same time period, actually covering a lot more years. You click on that, and it's going to give you a description of where you're going to find this. This is actually at an area research center. Whitewater Area Research Center. So if we go back to our website here, on this page, Research Your Family History, there's a description of what the area research centers are. If you click that, it'll come up with a map, and it tells you all of the single colors are all related to one area research center. So the Green Bay Area Research Center covers all of these darker green counties. The one that we were looking at was at Whitewater. Jefferson County, Rock County, and Walworth County are the only 3 that the UW Whitewater Area Research Center covers. And then on this same page, we link you to their website, okay, for that area research center. And there's even more materials there for you. Now, archival materials like this would not go out through interlibrary loan. Most archival materials will not go out. But within the state of Wisconsin, I mean, this doesn't help you a lot in Nevada, but in the state of Wisconsin, we can switch things from, or move things from one area research center to another within the state. So it is a kind of a handy thing to find. So another way to search besides a town is putting in the name of a county. Walworth County, Wisconsin. And then you could just put in court or just leave it open like this, or put in genealogy or put in history. And you're going to get a variety of different hits. Again, aiming toward the idea of archival materials, you could put in court. If you notice, there's a tab here, all these refined by options. The most important one is this, where it says libraries, and it mentions the many libraries that could be listing here. But you can see this is just the one. It came up with just the one for our archives. So Walworth County Judgment and Order Books. You notice when you start doing research with court records, there's all kinds of different types of court records. Okay, when you start looking at land records, there are different kinds of land records. One thing I really suggest people do is contact the archivists, either with our archives or any of the archives through the ARC system. Talk to archivists, give them phone calls, not just email. Give them phone calls and ask them, can you tell me about this kind of collection? Can you tell me what type of court records you have? We definitely want people to communicate with us and ask us those kinds of questions because we're working with these collections all the time. Now, I mentioned, if you go back to the handout, there's archives, but then there's also library materials. Library materials are mostly published materials, but there's lots of exceptions. If you were to come to Wisconsin, to the Wisconsin Historical Society, you'll notice that we have in the library the pre-1907 birth, marriage, and death records. That's an archival collection, but we house it down in the library because we have longer hours and we have the technology, more of the technology, meaning microfilm readers. Again, you're going to search by location, but also you're going to search for those, you're going to do like local histories, but also family histories. We have a phenomenal collection of published family histories, and like I said before, we've been collecting these since the 1850s, published in the 1850s. So it's a wonderful opportunity. So look under the surname. My example is Frink. That's one of my surnames. And then I put in the name family, or the word family. Once I search that, you can see I got 2 results. And then if I search again using the word genealogy, I get 1 result. Now I will tell you, we are having some problem. Oh, I remember what the problem is here. Actually, it's refining by a different location here. I'm going to start that search again. Frink family. There, I got 13 hits. If you leave some of the breadcrumbs in a search, you're going to run into some trouble. So Frink family and then Frink genealogy. And we got 6 different hits. Some of these actually, if they're no longer in the public domain, could be fully digitized. Now from a distance, you may have a problem actually uploading this digital copy. So if you saw in the catalog, you saw that you wanted this book, and it says digital copies at HathiTrust, and then it mentions our library or any of the other libraries, but it won't upload for you, it won't go to a website, contact me. Because what I can do is I can easily download that book and put it on one of my on a Dropbox account and send you that link. So we try to make our collections as accessible as possible. If it's just a book, if there is only a listing above here and no digital copy is listed, or it says limited only or limited search only next to this hyperlink, that means you can't borrow that film. You actually have to be able to have to come here or to contact us and what I can do then is look through the book for you, identify specific pages that have to do with the branch of the family you're doing the most work on. We cannot scan full books that are still covered under copyright. No library can. And so, but we try to work with you on making some of this accessible. Let's open it up to questions you might have on the online catalog.
Any questions so far? Oh, did you hear that? They said, wow, that's great.
Oh, good.
You know what? I wanted to make a comment about what a great idea that was to share HappyTrust through Dropbox. That thought never even occurred to me, but what a fabulous way to share information.
It's so much easier. Are you still there?
Yeah, you know what?
Okay.
I have a question. You mentioned court records. Court records is such a deep topic. Can you kind of give an idea to the class, you know, especially to the newer people in the class, about the value of court records in genealogy?
Definitely. So if you picture a county courthouse, okay, and they have a clerk of court office, and various states call it different things, but it's basically a court office where they're keeping track of any legal transactions going on. So a legal transaction in the clerk of court office in Wisconsin would mean a probate file. Probate file is what you try and find on anybody who passed away in the family, because it could have a will that could mention things like the name of the daughters when they got married, the married names of the daughters, which if you've lost track of a daughter, it's hard to find sometimes. Also, civil and criminal court cases. Our ancestors went to court a lot more than we do. And so there are a lot of stories hiding in those civil court records. Those are just a couple of the different types of records that a lot of genealogists will make use of that are known as court records. The Register of Deeds Office is another office within the state of Wisconsin, at least. We call it the Register of Deeds Office at the county level that has the land records, and it has the birth, marriage, and death records. It may also have the tax rolls. So there are those types of primary documents, that's the gold, created at the time of the events. If you've lost track of a family, or you know that they went from Wisconsin out to Nevada, but you don't know when they did, you just have like a 10-year period. In the land records back here in Wisconsin, you could find out when they sold that land. And then when you get to looking at Nevada land, you could find out when did they buy the land out there. And so land records are great for pinpointing a family to a certain location at a certain time. Same with tax rolls as well. So that's kind of how you would use courthouse records. Yes?
Yeah, we have a question.
Is it possible to access those probate and court tax roll records via your website, or is it something you need to be on site for?
So to look at our collection of those, you'd have to be on site. But I will tell you, FamilySearch.org. Have you guys covered FamilySearch.org yet?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So a lot of the records that are at a courthouse have gotten filmed by Latter-day Saints. And then what they do is they take their film collections and they slowly digitize those. Okay, so it is possible that some of these land records and court records and such, a lot of the court records for Caddo Parish, Louisiana, in the 1850s to 1880s, something like that, I was able to use up here in Wisconsin without going down there because Latter-day Saints had filmed them, and then they put them onto digital. And so those court records could be available through Family Search.
Is 100% of your court collection digitized through LDS, or is it not completely digitized?
No, it's not completely digitized. And so what you have is when LDS approached an institution, okay, LDS said, can we scan everything or can we film everything? And that holder of those records said, no, you can't film everything. And so you need to assume that they may not have gotten everything filmed and then thus going to digital. Instead, think of the different institutions that could hold more records. In this situation of court records, a state archives, which is what we are, could hold those court records, or they may still be only at the county courthouse. Okay, so you have 3 different institutions that could hold the court records you need. starting with the county, and then going to the state archives, and then possibly FamilySearch.org.
Okay, so you would recommend in that order then for somebody who's not local there in Wisconsin to reach out for the county courthouse records first, you know, through email or phone call or letter, and then go up to your level, and then if that level fails, go to the LDS.
No, I do the opposite, actually.
Oh, okay.
I would go to Family Search first, and if they've gotten it digitized, use it.
Gotcha.
What I am saying is that don't stop at Family Search, okay? Make yourself check to see if the state archives has anything additional, and if the county courthouse has anything additional. You know, if there's one thing I've learned about legal documents created by the government, is that they have more than one type. Okay, they've created such a large paper trail, and what our job is as family historians is to track down that paper trail. And now you know 3 different places you do need to check all 3.
Great advice. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's go back.
Another question?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the question was about birth certificates. Did you want to wait until you get further along in your presentation?
Yeah, I'm going to go into our website next, and I talk about birth, marriage, and death records there.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
No other hands are up.
Okay, so I'm going to take away the catalog and take away the ARC. So we are back to our website. So on anybody's website, okay, be it our website or Ancestry or Family Search, the first thing you should do is figure out what do they actually have on that website. An example, I want to show you on Ancestry. If you subscribe, how many people in the audience subscribe to Ancestry?
Almost everyone.
Okay, good deal. All right. Well, so what I usually do is I show people if you don't subscribe, you have to go all the way down to the bottom where it says sitemap. You can actually get a link to the catalog just without even logging in. You can get a list of everything Ancestry has. Don't assume they've got it all. Okay, there are many, many holes in these collections, and so it's it can be very misleading to think that they have the whole thing. Another one, Family Search, when you go to their website, there it is, you can go to search catalog, and that's a master list of everything they have, and you sort it by either place or surname or titles, so on and so forth, okay? In our website, family history collections are going to be located in 2 places on this website. Research your family history and explore our collections. So I'm going to first go to research your family history. Right away there's a search box. Resist. Do not type in anything yet, okay? You have to wait. You've got to go through and identify what does this site even offer me, all right? So browse all items in our family history resources, and it's going to take a second here. So on the left side, you can filter that whole list down, and one way is to do refine by categories. And you notice pre-1907 vital records. This collection that's going to come up, this is over 2 million, is that 2 million? Yeah, 2 million different entries in this collection. Every collection has a caveat. Every collection has a hole in it, okay? In this collection, what you're looking at are pre-1907, specifically pre-October 1st, 1907, and they are only the records, birth, marriage, and death, that the county forwarded to the state vital record office. So one thing with indexes is a very, very important lesson with genealogy. Don't think that your name was not misspelled, because it was. Other people misspelled that name and they slaughtered it. And then another person came along and indexed the slaughtered names and slaughtered them farther. And so you have a variety of different possibilities. Look at this one here for Racine County. Unnamed. I'm really curious about where that record is, and there's no date of the event. So there are some records in here that can be very difficult to use. So what you do is you go through this index, and if you find an entry, you can see where it's from, the county, the volume and page, or the reel and record number, the date it comes from, and then down here, how to purchase. So from a distance, you would be able to buy a physical copy, we mail to you, or we email a copy to you, okay? This film was done by Latter-day Saints. So you could possibly get a hold of the well, you can't borrow the microfilm anymore. You'd have to go over to Utah, which you guys are closer to it than I am, and use that collection over there. This index comes from a microfiche set that the State Vital Record Office put together. The reason I bring this up is because Ancestry and Family Search went through and used those same index fiche and put together their own databases. So you got 3 different institutions that have done an index to this. Sorry, my throat got really dry really quick. So I would say go through this index and see if you can find any entries for what you're looking for. One idea, though, when you're looking at an index, certainly for an institution like us, is that if you don't find something, you can always call us. You can email us and ask us, can we check it as well? And what I do when I check these for people is I do not put a name in these search boxes. I filter it down to a location, and then I filter it down to the type of record and down to the era. And you can see some of these numbers go down pretty far. And then I sort it. I have not put in any name yet, okay? With the births that you'll run across, there are many of these that are unnamed at the time of the registration of the birth. Later, they may be known as Sarah, but at this point, they're unnamed female. And so you have to be pretty creative. An L in a name could be misinterpreted as an S. So what I do when I find these is I go through each of these pages and just see if I can find them in there. Okay, and like I said, I've sorted it alphabetically to try and find out, oh, I wonder if they messed up the name this way or that. Okay, I'm going to take out all these breadcrumbs. Any questions about the birth, marriage, or death records?
That was a really handy little tip about just doing the search by drilling down to the data set.
I really suggest people do that with other sites too, especially with Ancestry. When you're trying to find somebody in a census, drill it down to the location and the certain census year. If you've never done that before, let me just show you real quick on Ancestry. When I've gotten every census on a person except the 1900 census. I can't find them. They should be there. They're there. I have all kinds of documentation. All I'm going to do is go into the search, all collections, and I have a shortcut. I have these different links over on the right side. I can choose U.S. Federal Census Collection, and then I can come down here and choose just 1900. And then over here, browse this collection. I'm going to choose Wisconsin, and then I'm going to choose Racine. Then I'm going to choose the certain town. I have all kinds of evidence that they should be in Caledonia. I used this whole strategy to help a person in Denmark find what happened to a branch of their family when they came over here. They did not find them in the census, and yet they had lots of documentation. Their last name, when I got them actually on the page, thank goodness this couple named their child Bruce. They were Jens and I think Anna or something like that, but they named their child Bruce, so it made it a lot easier. When I pulled up the census page, the last name was smudged out. Oh. The indexer had nothing to index. And so going through this and going page by page through the census is a good strategy when you have all kinds of other evidence that that family should be there. So consider doing that with websites like ours, but also with Ancestry. Yes?
Oh.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I can see you.
So this index, for example, my relatives are from Columbia County, Portage. specifically.
I was just there Wednesday night giving a presentation.
Really?
Yes.
Well, actually, a friend of mine that's here in the room and I are going to be coming to the Historical Society this July.
Oh, wonderful.
But the county, if the county didn't give up the records to be included in this index, is it
Right.
possible that the county still has a record? Because I'm having a devil of a time finding some of my relatives'
So yes.
life events. So
Yes.
I would need to go to the county or to Portage. I'm going there anyway. And they should have some records there.
Yes, they should have some records there. The key is the word some,
Yeah.
because the registering of birth, marriage, and death records across the state of Wisconsin for births and deaths, average start was about 1852. For marriages, average start 1836. That's our earliest records. But each county will tell you, like for Columbia County, I think they would probably say no vital records before 1879 or something like that.
Really?
And so then you got to be kind of creative and use other types of records like church records or like land records that pins that family down to say they bought the land there, they're still living there, I know they are. Tax rolls, the same thing. So you're using these other types of records then when a vital record is just not to be found.
About the church records.
Yes.
Are they, where
In
can
one
I
location?
Pardon?
Are they in one location?
I doubt if they are.
You're correct.
Yeah. I'm thinking, well, my relatives were Lutheran, and I'm thinking that maybe, well, I don't know where to look for the church records there in Portage.
What time period?
It would be in the 1870s and 80s.
Awesome. Okay, so look at the screen again.
Okay.
What we have along with the birth, marriage, and death records, this is a good segue into the next section I was going to cover. I just have to let the website catch up with me here. Actually, if you could find it through Research Your Family History, but I'm going to move over to explore our collections. And one of the collections we have are county histories, local and county histories. We have scanned, I think there's like 80 different books in here, and you can choose the county, and then it should come up with these different collections. Look at when these these books were published, right around the time you're looking. And what they did with these county histories is that they tell you a religious history of the churches in that region. They're identifying specifically those denominations and the specific sections within those denominations. Okay, the Lutheran Church is a broad topic. You got all kinds of different Lutheran churches.
Right.
And so this county history, you would click it, and then it would pull up the whole book. And you could browse through this all from home. This is all free for you to use off of our website. Right? And you would just go through. There's also these biographical sketches that could show up in there too. You're going to have a description of the education in the area. What were the schools? What districts? What did they call those districts? All of that is kind of explained in a county history. And what's good is that a lot of these were published in the 1880s and 1890s, which is going to help us all a lot. Now, you've identified the name of the church. You have a couple more places to check. One is a local historical society may have some church records. The churches, if they're still going, may still have their own records, or a regional or a denominational archive could. For the Methodist Church, we have an archive in Sun Prairie that holds a lot of Methodist church records. In Ancestry, they have Evangelical Lutheran Church records, which are a lot of Norwegian records and German records. Okay? And so you have that collection. Here at Wisconsin Historical Society, we have a lot of Lutheran Church records. We have a collection called the American Lutheran Church Records on microfilm that you can use. And so going into our online catalog, remember that's the part I first started with the UW libraries, go in there and put in the name of the church and see what comes up. Before you come, make an appointment, phone consultation, schedule one with me so that I can look at your specific towns and time periods that you're looking at, and I can help you come up with a research plan to say, oh, actually what you want to do is go to this other institution, and that's what they're going to have specifically what you want, or no, that's here too. This, you're going to go up to archives.
I think I love you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. So yeah, those are some ideas, but definitely whatever your audience here is looking at, those county histories are so valuable. It's not just because they're going to tell us the names of institutions. It also is telling you a lot of the history that your ancestors lived through. And so when you're doing those timelines of the family and figuring out what happened to each of these people, a county history can show you a lot about what happened. It's the same with newspapers. When I went into the online catalog, I did not talk about newspapers right away. So I will talk about those as we move on to the next section here. All right, so let's go back here. Is there another question?
Yeah, I have a question about the digitized books. Are those keywords searchable?
Yes, they should be, yes. So
now, do you have to download them first, or can you just keyword search right out of the catalog?
I believe you can keyword search right out of the catalog, or not out of the catalog, out of that digital copy. Let's test this out. Text search. '86 references to the town of Poynette, which, by the way, is where I grew up. That's why I knew Columbia County.
So you just click on go, and then it takes you to those 86?
Yep, within this book.
Oh, I see. Over there on the right-hand side, it shows you the page and how many times it's displayed.
So then I can go over to that page and take a look at what they're talking about here.
Very nice. Oh, and it's highlighted, too.
Oh, yeah. And Poynette Presbyterian Church, or the academy, but I went to the church and I graduated from that high school. So, Poynette. All right. So there's that item. There are a lot of digitized books out there. When you go into the online catalog for us, the UW's libraries, I do notice that a lot of those are published by HathiTrust. You could also check out titles in Google, in Internet Archive, and Family Search for digitized books. Great opportunities out there. A lot of books being done. All right, let's go back. Is there another question, or are we okay to forward on?
I have another question. It's a little bit off topic, but does your library accept, because one of the things we really stressed in this class, because we are in an academic institution, is as teaching everyone to write their family history. Does your library or your society take donated family histories?
Yes, we do. What we prefer them to be, and I'm going to cough again. Where's my little thing here? There we go. What we prefer it to be is bound, okay, not in a binder, but actually bound as a book with the structure of a book, a title page, a sections, table of contents, index, that kind of thing. And it should tell a narrative. It should tell stories, not a book of charts. So we want you to draw out those stories and write them up. But yes, we would definitely be interested in that. In fact, one of the things that we have once a year is this Genealogy and Family History Book Award. And so in here, you'll be able to see what kinds of things we're looking for. These would be whether you're nominating the book for an award or just thinking of donating a copy of your book. And then you can see previous book award winners are all here. We've been doing this since 1990.
That's wonderful.
So, yeah, this is the most recent one, the Christoph Zick family, 1769 to 2018. This author, Philip Hascheider, had gotten this award 3 or 4 different times. And so, yeah, it's a great opportunity. What I've done is I do a workshop a lecture on writing biographical sketches. After 40 years of research, my family tree is extensive. And so I have 2 wonderful daughters who are just not interested. They're patient with their mom when I tell them the stories, but they're not terribly, terribly interested. So what I want to do, so my 40 years don't go to waste, is to put these together as biographical sketches. I want a book, an encyclopedia of all of our ancestors, with a chart in the front, of course, to show how everybody's related. But each one of them is forcing me to look at a person at a time instead of a massive list of everybody.
I love it. That is wonderful.
Yep. So that's, it's another talk. If you wanted me to give it to your group, that'd be another talk that we could do.
I will definitely follow up with you on that because that's something we've really been stressing in this class.
Well, I think it's a simple, it can be done in a simple way. It can be an overwhelming idea for a great majority of people don't think they can write. And you really can if you take a certain steps through it. It makes it easier. And so I speak as a person who did not like to write either. So it can be done. All right, so let's go back to this Research Your Family History. I want to point out a couple of more collections that could be helping you, especially if you're dealing with Wisconsin families. One of the most popular emails that we get is, I live in an old house, I'd like to know everything, can you send me the house's history? No, we don't have a lot of just files sitting around about everybody's property. Instead, what we do have is what's called the architecture inventory. And so each one of these show up here. I'm going to pull up one of these examples. It's Architecture and History Inventory. This is put together by our Historic Preservation Office. So if you have somebody who lived in Wisconsin, you could put up an address in the search for through this database. And come down here. What you would do is search within. So if I wanted to put in like Platteville, because I had somebody who lived in Platteville, it would pull up the 1,121 pieces of properties that are registered with this inventory. Okay, you notice I did not go to this top box. I went to the search within. That's a way you can manipulate your search. And with each of these, actually, I'm going to pull up Richland Center. And with each of these, you could go through. Now, searching within, I know that the family was the name James. There's a James Street, and they do have that family. The family I come from had the name of the street named after that family. But each of these has their own little history. Ada James was a great aunt. She was a suffragette. It tells a little bit about the property, and then I can contact Joe DeRose in our staff to see if there's a file that may have a few more notes in it, possibly more photos. Okay, so there are different institutions, usually a state historical society, that could have this in other states, architectural inventories. So it's worth looking into. If your family had any kind of business in a town, I encourage you to look for those properties, those pictures of the properties and everything. Going back here. There we go. Our photos are phenomenal. I love our photos. They're so much fun to go through. You could do a search by town. You could do a search by surname and see what kinds of images will come up. Again, with one of the ancestors here. I have there's pictures in here of D.G. James. Ada is his daughter. This one here is when he went to Washington, D.C., to be make Wisconsin the first to ratify the 19th Amendment, which we'll be celebrating soon. It was just 100 years ago, women, that we could vote. It's such a short time in the life that we are looking at, the span of years that we're all looking at in our family history, just 100 years. That's not very long. All right, so if you go back here, that's our photograph collection. Understand that we have a lot more photos that are actually in our collection than what we have digitized on our website. So there's even more. Always assume that idea with institutions like a research institution, like a library or an archives. There's usually a lot more actually at that institution than they display in their website. There's this Wisconsin local history and biography. These are actually articles that are scanned, so you can find the actual full article in here. And then you can download those articles. So you could search in here and try and find by location or by surname and see what articles come up. These were clipping files, and they were put in binders, or not binders, but scrapbooks. And so that was all put together around the turn of the previous century, about 1880 to 1920. Librarians at the Wisconsin Historical Society went through newspapers, didn't hit every single newspaper, just the ones that we had access to, and they actually clipped out articles that looked interesting. Okay, that means they didn't get everything. Then also the other thing they clipped out were obituaries. And what we call that is the Wisconsin Necrology. That's a database. You don't get to see the obituary, but it does tell you the volume and everything that it comes from within the necrology. And then you can buy a copy, either digital or physical, that we could send to you. Now, it does not include everybody's obituary. It's just those obituaries that the librarians had put together. There's also, in those county histories that we mentioned before, there's a lot more than the ones that we published or scanned and put on our website. You also have a lot of books that are put in there. This is an example. This one it's Freemasons of Wisconsin, Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite, published in 1913. There's our call number to the book, and it says the page number. What I would suggest is taking that title and putting it into a Google search and see if you can find the full digitized copy of that book. You've been told there's something about this person on page 31. Okay, be sure when you run across this, be sure that you actually are looking at the right edition. Sometimes these will be more than one edition, and the name may show up on one page on one edition and a different page on a different edition. So you have to pay attention to the whole citation. Okay, let's see here. There's a lot of content in here, that is for sure. Another area, which is just a fun place to go to as well. You have in the Explore Our Collections, there is, let's see, where to go first, Maps and Atlases. Down here, you have access to the Sanborn Fire Insurance maps for Wisconsin. And you can browse those maps. Library of Congress also are digitizing Sanborn maps. Try it out, loc.gov. loc.gov. So you could change, these are on our website are just Wisconsin's. So you can pull up the map and then take a closer look.
Lori, for those who are new in the class, just beginning genealogy, can you kind of go over what kind of a map this is and the value of it?
Yes, the fire insurance map. Sanborn Fire Insurance Company went to various towns across the country, and what they were doing is they were documenting what are these buildings made of for fire insurance purposes. And so you have a lot of coding being done on these pieces of property. The yellow means something, the pink means something. They have descriptions of where are the water facilities, the fire department. There's some notations here. If I had a family business or a home in this town on Broadway Street, I'd want to see this map because basically it's telling me what the property looks like, what's in this property. Okay, so we're going to try and pull up one that gives it. Here's the German Baptist Church. What is that little building on the one side and this one way down in the back? So it gives you a snapshot of that property. You do have to use their keys. The key is very important when you're looking at maps, just as important with a Sanborn Fire Insurance map. So that's why I say Sanborn Fire Insurance maps are mostly urban, and if you have people living in the United States at times between, I think as early as 1880, possibly, to about 1920 something, possibly even further than that, they may have updates coming through as well. So the 1912 edition of this map, and then there may be also one made in the 20s or 30s. And that property then would show you how it's changed. Maybe in the 1930s, this building is gone, you know, and that little building is there, but they have a different building over on the other side of the property. So it gives you a little bit more of an idea. Also, you know, when you have a story in the family that says, hey, you know, I went to school, we had to walk all the way over on the other side of town, or we had to walk, Plat Map is good in this way, we had to walk 3 miles away from our house to get to the school, uphill all the way, back and forth. You always go uphill in both directions. And so what you do then is you can use maps, Plat Maps or Sanborn Fire Insurance maps to identify, wait a second, that wasn't that far. It was actually just down the street. Also, where are they living and where's the churches that are nearby? Often that's where they went to church. They didn't necessarily go all the way out to the other side of town. And so you need to see what are the options there. In a Sanborn map will tell you what churches are in that area. So all things that can help you when you identify where a person lives. You want to see a snapshot of what was that location like at the time. A map is a great way to do that. Okay.
We have a question.
Yes.
Does Sanborn still do it to this day?
I don't believe so, no.
But they are
I
required,
don't.
right?
But they're what?
Required?
Mapping of property at this time, I don't know much about. I'm always looking at the old stuff, to tell you the truth. So, yeah, I would say I would guess I would talk to the county level as government-wise and ask them, what are the procedures? What kinds of maps are being created today for property? You know, you can go to Google Maps and get a street scene of a house. So I have an address that the family lived at way back. I'm going to go onto Google Maps and do a current view of that property and see if the house is still there.
I've done
so there's,
that.
You know, what's that?
I have done that several times already, yeah.
Yeah, yep. So you use all those different resources, and as you go through, document what you're doing. Okay, make a note that you did a search of Sanborn maps for 1912 for Abelman, Wisconsin, and then that's in the I've already done list, and you make a to-do list saying, but I didn't look at the 1935 one. I need to do that too. You know, so the ones that we have are digitized here, but as I said, double check with the actual institution. If I'm wondering, I wonder if they have more at Wisconsin Historical Society. Then what you can do is go to contact us at the bottom and then send us a message, or contact us by giving us a phone call at any of these offices. If you chose the wrong office, it's not like we're going to say, nope, we're not it, click. We're going to tell you who you talk to on our staff specific about those questions that you do have. It's also that you have my contact information on the handout. So if it's going to be a lengthy conversation, it's a good idea to set up a consultation a week in advance. So send me an email or give me a phone call, and we'll set up a time so it's actually on my calendar. That way I'm not interrupted. I actually put signs on my door and everything. There's a sign right now saying, don't bother me, I'm on a webinar. So, all right. Civil War. How many people are working with Civil War ancestors?
My hand's up.
Okay. All right. So with Wisconsin especially, with the Civil War, if you look at the very front page, it says Wisconsin in the Civil War. One of the most interesting questions we get that's almost too broad is, can you send me all the Civil War records for my person? Like, it's not done that way. No. They're held in various places. So what we have at Wisconsin Historical Society are unit histories more than just Wisconsin. We have lots of unit histories from across the United States. Then we also have compiled service records. Right? The service records at the National Archives are a little different from our compiled service records, which were created in the Adjutant General's office here in Wisconsin. And so you have one author creating a document, and then National Archives is creating their own document, or they're collecting the federal document. Let's see, we have in the archives a collection called Series 1200 that has all of the paper trail that was created during the war. So the payroll and the roster, or the muster in and muster out rolls, those are all part of that collection up in archives. So what you would know is that Lori said that we have Civil War records for people who fought out of Wisconsin. So you would write me an email saying, Lori, you said you had this. Can you tell me what I need to do? And I would say, contact archives for the Series 1200. I will look in our collection of the compiled service records down here and in the unit histories. But at the same time, I'm going to tell you, contact National Archives too, because you got to get the pension file and you got to get the service records. When you're looking at any military paper trail, you're dealing with the state keeping track, and then you're dealing with the federal keeping track. If you're in the American Revolution, you have town records as well. And so you have various places that are creating the paper trail and then wondering where did that paper trail go that was created during the time period, and even afterward as well. Because, of course, you have pension payments and everything later. Let's see. Trying to think of, and we do have a lot of collections in our photograph collections of Civil War soldiers at the time of the war, individuals or small groups, and then of course the not reenactors, but the men who got together with the GAR, Grand Army of the Republic, and had their not reenactments but reunion type events, their encampments. And so there are a lot of those that got done with photographs showing them in groups, all these older men. So let's see here. I thought there was another one I wanted. Oh, I know what else I wanted to show you. Turning points. We have a lot of materials in this collection called Turning Points in Wisconsin History. Where is it here? Probably went right by it. Yeah, there it is. Turning Points in Wisconsin History. We break it down by era. So when you're doing history, genealogy, you have to do a historical perspective of when this person is living too. What was that area like at the time? What was going on at that time where the person's living, because it was affecting them. And so you need to learn the general history. This is a great part of our website to help you with that. So if you look at suffrage, for instance, we have a lot of articles. You pull up these articles, and you can go right to the article. This one came from the Wisconsin Women's Suffrage Association. It was published in 1901 and then 1918, I guess. It's a pamphlet that was in our collection. We scanned it and put it on this website for you to view. If you're looking at somebody in the logging industry, there's a lot of articles. There's some books that we've digitized, some images, some manuscript collections. So this is under each of these topics, you get a handful of really great resources that can help explain the historical background of where your family is living. So that's Turning Points in Wisconsin History. I think what I'd like to do is open this up then to any kind of questions. It doesn't have to be about our collections. It could be about strategy, any of that.
Questions? What is while they're thinking, what is the most typical brick wall that you work with people doing Wisconsin genealogy? Is it vital records missing? Is it burned courthouse records? What is it?
Well, I don't really rank the things because, I guess as you go earlier in the time period, when someone says I have a brick wall and then they say it's 1900, I'm kind of excited because that's easier, If they start saying I'm trying to find someone who was born in the 1840s in Wisconsin and married in the 1850s, 60s, that kind of thing, it's like, oh, those vital records are not going to help me very much. There is not as much of a paper trail, and the paper trail that is there can be very difficult to find in a lot of ways. It's a very rare situation where I can't direct you to either another resource or something we have. It's pretty rare. There's usually something else that a researcher has not thought to look through. Certainly with DNA results being available now, or DNA testing and the popularity of it, that really has helped a lot with the brick walls of adoption. And so we do have people to direct people to who can help interpret the DNA results and how to use them most effectively in finding living ancestors.
Well, speaking of adoption, that's a good point. Well, I know like in Pennsylvania now you can get your adoption records. What kind of a state is Wisconsin as far as adoption records are concerned?
It can be very cumbersome and still in Wisconsin, from what I understand. So what I always tell people is don't assume anything about it. Always contact the agency that should have a record. There are a lot more people are asking about records that are pre-1920. Now those are probably civil court records and probably open to the public without very much trouble. Everybody thinks adoption means everything is closed, and it isn't necessarily. So it's really, a lot of times it's encouraging them to talk to other agencies. Within the Department of Health and Social Services, for the state level, they have an office that works strictly with adoption cases. And so they do have a priority of trying to find people, trying to help people find their families.
Wonderful. Oh, yes, we got some questions.
Can you collections?
Say that again?
Could you speak about your newspaper collections?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I did miss that part. So our newspaper collection is second only to the Library of Congress. And the best way to find out what newspapers we have, there's two ways. One is you just want to know what newspapers were ever published in Wisconsin. There's this guide to Wisconsin newspapers. It's a listing of the titles and when those newspapers ran according to the county and the town. And so at least that way you go into the online catalog knowing a title to actually check. So if I wanted to know what there was for Columbia County, that's dang. There's Columbia County. I know the Dells is in Columbia. So say, for instance, I wanted to check what they have for a newspaper in 1865, okay, real early kind of time period. I can see Portage, Partyville, all these different towns. A lot of those smaller towns are not going to have an early newspaper. Once I identify which newspaper I want, this one ran for 1853 to 1859. WHI is the Wisconsin Historical Society, so I could take that title, Badger State, and go into our online catalog. There it is right there. And then at the top here, it mentions there are some originals that we put in our preservation facility, but we also have it on microfilm. When you see that a title of a newspaper is on microfilm, we do loan those through interlibrary loan. So you could have that film sent over to you in Nevada. Okay? So a two-step process. Go to that guide. You can actually download that whole guide if you want, if you're doing a lot of Wisconsin. And then go onto the online catalog and see who owns that, if we have a copy of the book or a copy of the newspaper you want. Now, the biggest, most exciting thing with newspapers and genealogists is which are the titles that are digitized and where are they, right? So there's a couple of key websites to go to. It's not a full list, but here's some ideas. Newspapers.com has got quite a few of Wisconsin newspapers in it. Newspaper Archive is another one. Genealogy Bank. All three of those you could subscribe to personally, a month at a time if you want. What you would do then otherwise is check at your local library and see if any of them make any of those websites accessible for you to use through your library membership. In the state of Wisconsin, the Department of Public Instruction actually makes newspapers.com available for us to all use from home for free. It's awesome.
What? Could you repeat that?
Yeah, they'd like you to repeat that.
Okay, so you have newspapers.com, Newspaper Archive, and Genealogy Bank. Check with your library to see if they subscribe to any of those three products for you to use for free.
Hold on. I don't mean to interrupt, Lori, but I wanted to just kind of like expand on that since the class is asking questions about it. Our library here does not. However, one of the things that I've gone over in my class prior to today many times is that one of the real values of going around the area is to get different library cards from different counties. All the surrounding counties that surround Reno, allow you to get library cards. And what you can do is you can go onto each library's website, go to their electronic resource link, and it'll tell you which newspaper databases they subscribe to. We do subscribe to one through EBSCOhost here at our library, and you are welcome to use it from any computer here in the library. But if you want to access it from home, you have to be a currently enrolled student. But even if you're not a currently enrolled student, you can access our database. We also have the archive for the New York Times, going all the way back to the beginning of the New York Times, and that's digital. And you can access that on any computer here in the library as well. But I do urge everyone to go to all the different community libraries around the area, like Douglas County Library, Washoe County Public Library, because each one of them offer different electronic databases for newspapers. Now, you're not going to get Ancestry.com, unfortunately, because I've already looked to see if Ancestry.com is available. The only place you can get Ancestry.com here locally for free is to go down to Carson City and go to the state archives, and all their computers in the state archives allows you to use Ancestry.com all day long for free.
And that's a library edition, so it's about a third of the databases that is in the private subscription of Ancestry, but it is the most core records that you can use. All the censuses, the passenger lists, the vital record indexes, all of that is in the library edition, so it's well worth your time to look at that. One more point about the newspapers. In Library of Congress, loc.gov, digital collections, they have a collection called Chronicling America. And they're the organization that we're working with to digitize the Wisconsin newspapers, a little at a time. If you look at how many newspapers were ever published in the United States and Canada over time, it's a drop in the bucket as to what's available digitally. It really is. The other one to look at besides Chronicling America is worldcat.org. Have you gone through that, Suzanne?
Yes, we have talked about WorldCat, but there are some new people in class today, so if you want to go over it a little bit, you're more than welcome to.
So I have a town that I know the family was in, Poinet. It's in Wisconsin. I'm just going to put that into WorldCat. WorldCat.org is a massive online catalog. It is a list of resources. It is not the resources themselves. You can't search within a book. It just tells you a book exists. In this case, it tells you if a newspaper exists. So if I put in the name of the town and then the word newspapers or newspaper, then it comes up with 3 different newspapers. All right. This first one, it's going to tell me what libraries own that newspaper. Then you can try and get that through interlibrary loan. A short story. I know we're running out of time here. A short story. Try various different types of records in here. Try family histories, same kind of search. The name Frink and then the word genealogy. The name Frink and the word family. Do a search and see what libraries may have a family history that's not found at one of the major libraries like ours is. It could be found at the small public library in the town where the family came from or settled for the longest time. That may show up in WorldCat. All of Family Search's collections should show up in WorldCat. Most of our collections do as well. Another one. Our family is my maiden name was Cook, C-O-O-K. I understood from an interview with an aunt that we were related to the Cooks in Cook County in Chicago, and that we were part of the Chicago Yacht Club. Might as well aim high, be very popular. So I went searching in the Chicago Tribune and found that we were part of the Western Canoe Association, not the Chicago Yacht Club. So, Western Canoe Association. You know a type of institution that your family was connected to, put that name into the name of the institution into WorldCat. What you'll find are published materials about that institution as well as possibly records, because these are not just library collections being checked. It's also archival collections telling you different institutions to contact. This annual book was published at the time that my family was in that canoe association and had a photo of a great-great-grandfather of mine. That was a wonderful find. The second one, the Ballast Island Chronicles. A lady got these issues of Forest and Stream, went at a yard sale or something, went through and found this story of Western Canoe Association and wrote a book. She had no connection to that actual canoe association, but she did an amazing book about that actual organization. And various times it mentioned a great-grandfather and a great-great-grandfather. And so you have to be pretty pretty bold. You got to be really digging into a lot of different places. This should be one of the most important tools you use to finding records like this. Let's see. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Lori, if you're not in a big hurry, our class goes into for another hour. So, I mean, if there's something else on the website, if you're not in a big hurry, you can go ahead and show it.
Well, I think maybe ask a few more questions, but then I will need to get going.
Okay,
So,
no, I understand. So,
That's
any
right.
other questions? Oh, yes, we have a question.
Job with their website. Are there any other state websites that have done anything this extensive?
you should always assume there are. And so what I usually tell people is think of the different types of institutions that exist. When you're in a small town, your small town could have a small public library. It could have a local historical society. Those two institutions could have at least a website that gives you a phone number to call, possibly even digital collections, depending on if they have volunteers who are willing to do the work. They have a local museum that could have articles that have been donated on behalf of the family members. Then at the county level, could have a county historical society and a county genealogical society. They could be one and the same, or they could be two different institutions that barely talk to each other because they're local and they have feuds going back and forth, okay? You got to contact both of those types, county historical and county genealogical. It's the same with the state level. You could have a state library, a state archives, and a state genealogical society, as well as a state historical society. And what you're doing is you're identifying those possible institutions and then you're Googling it. So Minnesota State Historical Society, Illinois State Library, Illinois State Archives, a state genealogical society. All of them have a chance of having a really good web presence, a lot of collections on their web, or at least content information. I tell you, Illinois State Genealogical Society has a great collection of webinars. They are very active with having nationally known speakers. Wisconsin State Genealogical Society has that as well. So if I go to WSGS.org, for their members, you can pull up previous webinars, and they have very nationally known speakers at their webinars. And so just become a member and then see what they have. Let's see. Then you have regional groups, all right? In Madison, you have the Max Kade Institute, which is a branch. It's actually a department in the UW, and they work with German American studies, and they work with genealogists. So I would look at MKI, Max Kade Institute. Now, how would you know to search for that, right? So instead, you would contact your friend over here named Lori, and you say, I got German people, what do I do? And I would say, you contact the Max Kade Institute. Here's their website. One of the things that they have for resources are lists of transcribers and translators. Because if you've looked at German at all, with the script that you have to work with, you have to have it translated first and then transcribed, right? Another one we have in Madison is the Norwegian American Genealogical Center and Naiseth Library. They are a research institution that specializes in Norwegian American studies. And so their staff works very closely with genealogists as well, from a distance as well as here in Madison. So up in the Twin Cities, you got the Czech Genealogical Society, International Genealogical Society, something like that. You have the Irish Genealogical Society up in the Twin Cities as well. So there are definitely those types of institutions that could have something on their website that is content, and then also like digital collections, but also they could have just contact information, make phone calls, talk to people. I certainly prefer that, having that conversation with people versus emailing back and forth and back and forth. So those are just a couple of ideas. You also have the county courthouse. You know, the government is keeping track. In the state, usually you have a state vital record office. So you have all those different types of institutions to check.
Wonderful. I had no idea about the Norwegian American one. In fact, I think there's a couple people in this class who just perked up really wildly because that actually applies to their genealogy. I do have another question. You mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that you have records from other states. Can you kind of briefly go over that?
Yes, so the things that we have for other states are mostly published materials. So when I'm looking at our online catalog, I have people in Caddo Parish, Louisiana. I'm going to check to see what books we have. Now the census indexes I don't usually use because I use all the census on Ancestry. But I'm looking for books like this, Caddo Parish, Louisiana History and Biography, or Gleanings from Caddo Parish, Louisiana. That's right at the time that I had family living down there. And so that index that Wanda had done is very valuable to me. I want to pull that up and take a look at it. So looking in our online catalog is your best way to find out what we have either in our archives or in our library. What I will tell you, in the archives, most archival collections are Wisconsin-based because we're the state archives of the state of Wisconsin. But we have some other collections like some of the photos, but also our map collection is very deep historically and then also international in scope. And so you would see that listed in this index as well. Being on campus, there may be, like over at the Memorial Library right next door to us, there are Irish censuses that they have because their scope is worldwide. Our scope is North American. And so being on this campus, you have the value of having more than one library to look at as well. But that's a general idea of what we have when it's talking about United States and Canada.
Wonderful, wonderful. This is very, very impressive. I agree with the class. Your website is marvelous.
Good. I like to hear that. Sometimes it frustrates me. So it's good to know. We love ideas. If people have ideas of what you would want more clarity or you want a different collection that we don't have on there yet, we're always up for ideas.
Wonderful. Any other questions? Oh yeah, we have another question. Go ahead.
Doesn't have ancestry in the old photos.
Okay, they're cutting away back and forth.
Oh, okay. Can you talk a little louder or come up a little closer?
I have old photos that my mother had that have no label. Are there any sites where I can post those? Anybody can identify who they are.
Did you hear the question, Lori? The question was, that she has some very old family photos that are not identified? Oh, you
Dead Fred.
Okay, good.
Deadfred.com. Okay, that's one of the fun places to post them. It's also a fun place to look and see if somebody has posted any of the photos by a photographer. Maybe you've gone to one of these antique stores and you see a whole box full of these photos that have gotten away from families, and yet they have the photographer listed below. So this website will post these, or you can post photos to that website. I will tell you, though, a lot of county or local historical societies, town or county, are working on, the Richland Center is one really good example of this. This was deadfred.com, okay? Richland County Digital History Room. That's what they call it. So you can see there's a lot of photos on here. This is the Richland Center Public Library in Wisconsin. And what that librarian does in their local history room is that she is going through their photograph collection, scanning the photos, and then putting in the description of what they know about each and every photo. And so they may be interested, if you have a photograph that you can identify was from a certain town, locate that local historical society and talk to their staff. See if they're working with digitizing their collections, or at least scan the photo you have and send it to them and see if they can identify things. People will scan a photo and send it to us if they want help identifying what era. And what we can do is our archivists will look at the clothing and the background and help you identify clues that you may not realize are there.
I'd like to add to something like with that. I've actually got an old family photograph of my grandfather with an unidentified woman, and I know approximately when the picture was taken, and I know approximately where in South Dakota it was taken. So what I did is I joined the local genealogical society there in that little town where I think the picture was taken. And as a favor, since I became a member, and I think it was like $20 a year to join, they're going through they have the old yearbooks. They're not digitized, but they have the old yearbooks. And they're going through the yearbooks right now looking for me to see if they can identify that woman in the picture for me.
It's amazing work being done at local levels. And that's why I said earlier, you need to find out who are all these different institutions besides the Wisconsin Historical Society. Because there are so many projects being done on behalf of local history. It's amazing. I think there's a question in the way back.
Yes, Randall?
Yes, what was their website for the photos?
Deadfred.com.
Isn't there another one, Ancient Faces?
Yes, there is. Yeah, they're still active too. I've not used Ancient Faces. I have heard of it just through different blogs, but I have not used it. Have you used it then, Suzanne?
Yeah, I have. However, I don't use it on my home computer anymore because when I used it one time, it downloaded a virus.
Oh, oops.
So now I only use it on different computers, not my home computer.
Right. Oh, gosh, look at that picture with the bunny rabbit up in the top corner. Scary Easter bunny. Recently shared by members. So, yeah, you can post photos in there, too. Anything else?
Any other questions? Last chance. No questions about Wisconsin? The archives? Okay. Well, it looks like that's going to be it, Lori, but we cannot thank you enough. So let's give her a big hand, shall we? Lori, I'm going to kind of give you kind of a view of the room here, just so you can kind of see what the screens look like. Can you see the screens?
Yes, I do.
Those are on the wall, and then I'm going to kind of just let everyone wave.
Yeah, that's wonderful. How many people are in there today?
I'm guessing about 25. I haven't done a head count, but it looks like about 25.
Okay, wonderful.
So,
well,
okay,
good luck
Lori.
with your research, and if you come up with other questions, you have my contact information. Don't hesitate calling. Everybody says, but you're going to get so many calls, and I really don't. So I encourage you to try.
I can help with that.
Good. I hope to hear from you guys.
All right, Lori, we cannot appreciate your time enough, and we've definitely really enjoyed the webinar and learned a lot.
Good. Well, enjoy the weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.